If you woke up and found out your lower body had become a man, would you go for surgery or just be a man? Jean is not used to being a man, so she gets caught in the zipper when she wears pants. She walks with an awkward posture, but she also inadvertently experienced the traditional handwork of a man. She even became interested in her friend of 30 years. This really worried Jean. At 38, Jean's life was a mess. Her husband dumped her because he didn't think she was feminine. She was left to raise her two children alone, but her love life was bad. She was not happy at work either because she is very weak in character. So not only her boss bullied her in the company, but also her colleagues teased her all the time. One day Jean got a call from her ex-husband. Her ex-husband said that he had gotten rotating custody of the children. He also bragged that his new wife was going to give him another child. Jean fell to the ground in a fit of rage. That night, thunder struck. Jean woke up with a pee. She got up and went to the toilet in a daze. Jean appeared to be very skilled at standing up to go to the toilet, but when she returned to bed, she felt something was wrong. Jean seemed to be standing rather than sitting when she went to the toilet. She thought about it for a moment and reached out to touch it. This can't be true. She touched her genitals again. Jean really had a man's penis. She looks in the mirror to make sure. How do I explain this to the kids? Should I ask them to call me daddy or mommy? Jean has to take the kids to school soon, but she couldn't find any panties at home that fit her. Luckily, she found a pair of underwear that her ex-husband had left behind and put them on. She rushes the kids to school and gets on her bike. She was in a lot of pain on the seat of the bike. She had no choice but to call in sick and go back to study what was going on. Jean told her friend that she had become a man. Marcel thought she was irritated by the custody issue, so Marcel didn't believe her. But when she lifted her pants and showed them to Marcel, Marcel was so scared that she immediately jumped 5 meters away. Was she afraid that Jean would lose control and hurt herself? After they had calmed down, Marcel looked closely again. It was obvious from her eyes that she couldn't stop looking. She was really envious. Jean said excitedly that you have the face of a woman and the body of a man. This is a gift from God to you. You must make good use of it. But Jean was very distressed. She didn't want to do that, so she went back to the hospital in secret. She went to a specialist in gynecology, but when she pulled down her pants in front of the doctor, who had been practicing for 50 years, was so scared that he ran out of the room. Jean woke up with a man's penis growing out of her lower half. This made her friends envious. The unreliable Marcel even let her use it to have a good time. Jean had to go to the doctor on her own. She said to the doctor, "I'm going to show you something you won't believe, but you have to keep my secret." The doctor said that I respect medical confidentiality very much. But when Jean pulled down her pants, the doctor was so scared that he poured a glass of water on his face. He had to calm himself down. The cold water didn't seem to be a hallucination. The doctor went back to his office and continued his examination, saying that your penis was well developed. It has become one with you. There's nothing I can do about it. You'll just have to get used to its presence. Jean had to go home and drink her sorrows away, but Marcel wasn't defensive in front of her. This made Jean very interested in her. She couldn't resist and reached out to Marcel. She asked Marcel to stay overnight. Marcel said angrily, "I treat you like a friend, and all you think about is that kind of thing." She slammed the door and left. Jean was in the bathroom at work that day. The female security guard suddenly came in. Joe looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't believe his eyes. The two of them laughed awkwardly. Joe was so embarrassed that he fainted. Joe woke up and still couldn't believe it. Jean hurriedly explained that this is a secret between the two of us. You must not tell anyone. Joe promised to help her keep the secret. But she was suddenly very interested in Jean. Joe had never seen a woman become a man in his life. They drank wine and talked. The atmosphere was getting more and more ambiguous, so they slept together. After Jean had experienced the pleasure of being a man, Jean's androgynous features became more and more obvious. She began to like wearing men's clothes. She also became very strong. Even her speed on a bicycle was much faster than when she was a woman. She was no longer timid and weak. She became better at interacting with the male workers at the construction site. Her co-worker Merlin was surprised by the change. Turning into a man, Jean has an idea to get back at her ex-husband. She asks her ex-husband out to a bar and exudes her unique femininity to him. Anton is captured by her. She drugged Anton's drink. She unleashes her penis on Anton's lustful gaze. Anton fainted from fear, but he woke up the next day with a hot feeling in his ass. Jean was so happy to get back at Anton. Since Jean became half male and half female, her personality has also changed a lot. She is no longer timid and weak. She dresses in a more masculine way. she began to enjoy the awkward body she now has. Every day, she is motivated by life. One day, she was directing workers at a construction site. She stepped in to save Merlin. This act leads directly to Merlin, who is also unhappily married, falling in love with her. He is completely captivated by Jean's unique charms. From then on, their relationship grows closer and closer. They start dating a lot, but just when they were about to do something more, Jean wakes up with a start. She suddenly realizes that the bottom half of their bodies seemed to be the same. So Jean now hated her awkward body. They were obviously in love, but they could only be brothers. She decided to have surgery to become a woman after a lot of thought. So she went to a specialist and asked him to help her get a sex change operation. However, the specialist said that her body could not be changed artificially. Jean was very disappointed to hear this result. She started to avoid Merlin on purpose. The greatest misfortune in the world is when two people are in love, but have the same penis. Friends and experts advised Jean to tell Merlin the truth. If Merlin didn't mind, then you can continue to be together. This friend and the doctor are really bold. They have the courage to think of anything. But Jean believed them. She decided to give it a try. If it worked, she and Merlin would become husband and wife. If it didn't work, they'd still be brothers. So Jean took Merlin to the roof and prepared to confess. Just as she was about to say, "I'm a man," suddenly there was lightning and thunder in the sky. Jean instantly felt as if her lower body was lighter. She subconsciously touched her lower body and found that she was a woman again. She cried with joy. The two of them finally did not have to be brothers. From then on, the two of them got married. You think this is the end of the story? It doesn't. Joe, the female security guard who had sex with Jean before, suddenly came to the door with a baby. Who do you think the father of the child will be? You can subscribe and leave comments if you have any ideas. Thanks for watching. See you next time.